The timeline is straight, but everything here moves in a wave. As we talked in the last video, we are starting from the history of English literature, and like everyone has a history, everyone has a past. I love literature has one too, and a very interesting one. But yes, before I was thinking that before diving deep into each age, we should first have an overview in our mind, so that when we'll be picking up a particular writer, we would know what things were going and how things were going, kind of a way. But since it is here that we are entering into this subject, I wanted it to be quite simple and basic. So here are some commonly known facts about each age that you should keep in mind. But here you won't be finding reasons, so keep them with yourself. When we'll go to that age, we would find out the answers. So let's start. The history of English literature begins with the Dark Ages, the Anglo-Saxons, 5th century AD. But please understand that this is the history of English literature, not of England as we call it now. And so if I say that the history of English literature begins with 5th century AD, it means that English as a language fit for writing literary works came in 5th century. Before that, maybe it was in some other language that the literature was written, that is in Latin, because Romans ruled England, the present day England at that time. Or maybe that the vernacular language, that is the Celtic or the Brittonic language, may not have literary efficiency. Or maybe that if there was literature in the vernacular language, it was mostly oral and couldn't survive, and we don't have it now. There can be many other reasons, but in this video we are not going there. So, as I said, the history of English literature starts with 5th century, with the coming up of the 3 Germanic tribes, the Angles, the Saxons and the Jutes, and more importantly, they're coming in power, so much so to have a complete linguistic takeover. The Old English is a union of all the languages they spoke. This is the age of ruler people, of tribal people who are at constant war with each other or with the neighboring lands. Also, it is the church who has the hold on knowledge. It is the church who is writing, who has literacy, and so we find heroic poetry, elegiac poetry, and religious poetry are being written here. Also, Latin is the language of prestige, and it will be for centuries to come. Still, vernacular language, the Old English, starts to get some respect. There is a dignity in vernacular language now, as literary works from Latin is being translated into Old English. But this is to change. With the Norman conquest in 1066 AD, the French came into rule. It is the French who are ruling England, and so French became the language of court, the language of official use, the language of preference, of dignity. Still, the church and the monasteries, which are maintaining records, continue to write into English, but the English is changed. It is the Middle English. And now, again, the dark, the heroic poetry of Anglo-Saxon, the somber poetry, give way to the joyful, the lively French romances. Women who were in scanty present in Anglo-Saxon became the center here. They get to enjoy a part of the chivalric nights. And this is to change. As I said, history is a wave. And in 1337, the 100 Years' War start. This is a war against French dominion of English land, which the English wanted back, and English again becomes the language of court. English becomes the language of literary work. Chaucer comes and he writes in London English, which becomes the standard English. Also, he brings into literary talk the common people, not extremely rich, not extremely poor, the common people of middle strata. And though there is a knight's tale in this Canterbury Tale, this knight is completely different from the French knights, and even in similarities, even when the knight, the Chaucer's knight, is similar to the French knight, he's being mocked at, he is being slightly laughed at. So we see the middle people who get a voice, who get to come up into literary work. And also against this French romances, we have medieval drama, which though has a religious origin, goes against French aristocracy and feudalism. And as we move to Renaissance, to Elizabethan age, this medieval drama grows. But before going that, let's understand Renaissance a bit. Renaissance is a rebirth. There is a quest for new knowledge here. New sciences are coming up. New religion is coming up. There is a new world, America, which has been discovered, and people are going on to explore this world. It is here that we have a rise of civility. The concept of gentlemen, English gentlemen, come here. Also, individual become more important here. Individual become more important than any institution. Church as an institution lost its hold over drama, and individual writers like Shakespeare, Marlowe come up here, and the individualist contribution of Shakespeare to English as literature and as language is unanimous. We have more than 1700 words that he added. We have more than 100 of phrases that he created or popularized, and here in his tragedies we have the concept of Englishness, and there is the universal human nature which is being portrayed. He gives voices to everyone, be it women, Jews, blacks, everyone who was being dominated by someone other. He gave a voice to all people of all walks in his works. But still, here, King remains the center. King is the divine being who has the divine right, and anyone who goes against the king goes against the state and is a traitor and has to kill, as we see in most of the Shakespearean tragedies. But Milton, in the age of Milton, or we should better call it interregnum, this idea in words. Milton propagates the idea that individual can go against the king, can rebel against the king, can kill the king if it is for national interest. And as we see, Oliver Cromwell executes Charles I, and he becomes the self-proclaimed Lord Protector of England. But you will find this age is the age of restrictions. This age, the age of extreme Puritanism, where all kinds of animal and human animalist pleasures are being banned. Theater, gambling, public houses, everything is being banned here, where there can be any kind of loudness or any kind of vulgarity or profaneness, something which is not religious or spiritual. Even holidays like Christmas and Easter are being suppressed. Women cannot wear fancy fancy clothes of loud colors. They cannot talk loudly into public places. But as I said, history is a wave. To this crest, we have a trough. To all the restrictions of interregnum, we have the unquestioned freedom of restoration. To all the, denying of pleasure in the interregnum, we have the pleasure-seeking motive of restoration. Everything is just about pleasure. Whatever, no matter what people are doing, they are just doing it for pleasure. Animalistic pleasure, worldly pleasure is being seeked here, materialism is here. So, as I said, the restoration of King Charles II brings restoration of drama. And drama, which is for most part, is the comedy of manners here. It's all about presenting the private life of individual on the stage. And you can understand it is all about profanity and vulgarity, and there are things which are completely going against rules. The classical rule of having tragedy and comedy is being changed, and we have tragic comedies here. Also, we have novels which are just for pleasure reading, and novels coming up in popular demand. Also, to all the restrictions that were laid on the women of interregnum period, there is a freedom that woman enjoys now. There is this freedom of any kind of clothes you would like. There is this freedom of profession. Though there are no much professions, still first woman actress is coming up here. There is the first professional woman writer in the literary world, Ephra Behn, who is writing novels, and things are quite. Maybe freedom needs to be curtailed. This freedom, which is unquestioned, needs to be curtailed, and this is done in enlightenment. But for this video, I'd like to stop here. I know the video has already gone too long, and I don't want to overwhelm you with so much information in one go. You are on your holidays, and it's important you enjoy, so that my video let you enjoy. Still, I don't want you to feel overburdened. So from next video onwards, we will deal with each age deeply. In next video, we'll have Anglo-Saxon period, and when we will be done till Restoration, then we'll have the part 2 of this overview, where we'll be discussing from Enlightenment to the present day literature. And in modernism, you'll find things happening so rapidly. That is why I didn't want to include it in this video. We'll do a separate video for that. So this is the end. If you like this video, please like this video. And if you have your other friends who are into literature, do share this video with them. And yes, now that you're in your holidays, you'll get to read novels of your liking away from those books. So do share your literature love stories on our Facebook page. The link will be in the description box. If you have something to say about this video, or about anything that you want me to include into the video, about things that I've missed, yes, there are many things I've missed, but this was an overview with primary things into mind. Still, if you want, you can write to me on my email ID. Please, the comment box can all, you can also write in the comment box. And what more? Yes, the books that I used for this video, I'll mention them in the description box. And what? It's done. Like, share, comment. Diwali. Haha. Like, share, comment, subscribe to this channel, and yes, you are educated enough. You know the drill. You know what to do. Bye bye. Happy Diwali to all, and have a safe Diwali. And share your Diwali stories on our Facebook page. Bye bye.